Hi, David.
Hey, Joe, how are you?
What's up, man? How you doing today?
Good, good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. I love your history, your work, what's going on. This is great. Where are you coming out of?
I'm in the Bay Area, California.
Okay, right on. So beautiful out there. I'm in Kansas City, Missouri.
Oh, nice. Love Kansas City. Good food.
Okay. Yeah, it is. It's actually a surprising arts incubator. When people come here,
Yeah.
I mean, of course, we have the Chiefs and the Royals and all the
Mhm.
sports and all of that and the barbecue, but there's a level of art acumen that exists in this town that I don't think outsiders realize until they come in and see it.
Yeah, I've got a friend who works for the tourism board of Visit Kansas City.
Yeah,
And yeah, I mean, she's always on her Instagram, always at some type of local art event all the time. It's really
yeah,
cool.
yeah. There's a lot going on. Well, so speaking of art, before we peel back the layers of your creative world and what you do, I want to know, how did you survive the last 3.5 years? How did you get through the pandemic, and how did it change you?
Yeah, man, that's a loaded big question. The type of photography that I do is not really always people based. It's more like I do commercial photography for companies, shooting like products on the go. And so I actually grew my business substantially during the pandemic. So it was a pretty cool experience. I had a lot of new clients come on and sending things to shoot, where I could go out like on my own solo trips and shoot those things, or take my family and shoot those things kind of out. And so I actually had a very productive last 3 years. My business grew to the point over the last few years that it went from being like, hey, this is my dream job, to like, oh my gosh, like I have to manage this thing now.
Wow.
So
That's
yeah,
good, man. That's
yeah,
real good. So there's all these things on paper that are a part of who you are. So let's boil this down
yeah,
so
sure.
that everyone can understand. So I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third grade students. It's career day. And
Got it.
one of the curious little kids looks up and says, "What do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
Yeah, wow, it's funny that you say it like that, because I'm actually speaking at a career day tomorrow.
Oh,
So
cool. So this is
yeah,
the warm up.
so this is the warm up, but it's high schoolers. It's a little easier to do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
I
yeah.
Yeah, okay, career day. Third graders ask me what I do. I help I help people and companies get their message across
Okay.
at its simplest form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
In third grade, I was pretty set. So I grew up in coastal North Carolina, always
Okay.
at the beach. I used to go to the aquarium all the time. So I grew up thinking that I was going to be a marine biologist. I was going
Okay.
to work in the sea and be a guy who studies the wildlife and the flow of the oceans, and that was going to be my life.
So tell me how this fascination with, still images, photography, writing, that creative side of you, how did all of that become a seed that grew into who you are today?
It really started with music. I was taking piano lessons as a child, and then that eventually led to, like, school band, middle school, high school. I played saxophone. Took that very serious and started college as a jazz major, and
Okay.
then or intended to do that route, had a scholarship and all that. And then I actually had a brain aneurysm when I was 18, and that was in 2001, and that hospitalized me for many months, and it kind of like changed the trajectory of my life, where I was planning to go to school to be a music educator, and really like dial in the music side of everything. When I had the aneurysm, it forced me to start like really thinking through, even at a young age, like, who am I and what do I want to do with the time that I have. And I went to school, ended up going to school, and with a focus to be a therapist, and kind of like try to everything that I do, I think, has been driven by my desire to help humanity just be a better version of itself. And for me, like in school, that was like, okay, I'm going to be a therapist. I'm going to help people, help families, help people overcome adversity. But whenever I got out of school, I had opportunities to do music still. And so but it wasn't so much on the jazz side like I was doing before. It was like, I started playing guitar, and, I really gave time to developing the music side. And I was in a band for many years. It was, really prominent. And then as that started as I started taking off, I had to be the creative guy. Like, okay, our band needs flyers, our band needs photography, our band needs videos. And so like I started just being the guy to make all that stuff in-house for our band at the time. And then as that sun set, I started using those skills to help other people. And that kind of eventually led to a career in creative directing for mostly in the nonprofit world. I would say like 90% of my work was with the nonprofit world, and being a creative director and all that. And then that eventually led to me what I do today, which is more freelance. Like I kind of own my own time and do the things that I want to give my time to. So that was kind of the transition from that. It's always been like the creative world has had a role in my life or a purpose in my life, but really these last few years I've kind of like been able to own it myself and do it independently, which has been honestly like the end game all along. And a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to be a full-time creative, and they're 22 years old and not realizing like I didn't become full-time in my creative, like owning my own time until, I'm 40 now. And so it was in my late 30s that became my reality, after almost 20 years of working in that work, working in the nonprofit world.
Yeah. So as a musician, what was the first live concert you saw that blew you away?
Okay, that's a fun story. I was all about Boys to Men as a kid. You remember Boys to Men?
Oh
Like, oh
yeah.
my
Oh
gosh, at
yeah.
Motown Philly,
Oh yeah.
and my dad took my brother and I think I would have been in middle school to see a Boys to Men concert. And it's funny
Nice.
looking back on that. That was my first concert. And then so like that was like, I mean, I still have excellent memories of being a middle schooler at a Boys to Men concert. But then really the first show that I saw as an adult that like really marked me was it was in the early 2000s, and I grew up with reggae music as a big part of my life. And so
Yeah.
I saw the Wailers, Bob
Yeah.
Marley's band. They
Sure.
still, back in the early 2000s, the Wailers eventually split into two bands, but this is when they were one band. So you see all the classic guys that played with Bob, and they had a new front man but they're playing all of Bob's songs. And there was something like music and nostalgia really run hand in hand in many ways, or even the creative world and nostalgia, and our sensory and nostalgia. So like there was something about that concert that elevated my view of music from like, hey, this is something I like to consume, to wow, this really creates experiences that can connect people to like in ways that are healing for them, and also or in ways that are like almost like transcendent, like the experience of going and experience something in the creative world. It just has a huge power to it.
So, I take a lot of pictures. I remember in high school, I was in the dark room, and I've always loved photography. It's been
Mhm.
a passion of mine. And there's things that you're going to do professionally, but personally, there's something that's always going to draw your eye in. What
Right.
is the thing that if you have the latitude to go out and grab a camera and go do it, what are you really digging on taking pictures of?
Yeah, and that this is what I primarily shoot. It's adventure photography. It's kind of like what I call the genre. It's photography that forces me to go out and do something complicated. Um, it's not like family sessions or portraits or studio headshots. What my kind of bread and butter is I get my camera into places that require either substantial work physically or substantial planning. And then I get to those places and shoot those places, and then those photos get licensed out. And so yeah, I mean that's kind of like if I have to hike 6 miles to get a shot, that feels like the kind of stuff I want to do.
Yeah.
If I have to go travel across the world for a couple of weeks to shoot in a place that is inaccessible or historically inaccessible, then that gets me excited. I had a shoot this summer in a very inaccessible place, and like that was real exciting for me. And so those are the kind of things that I'm really like I love to give my time to.
So who's been a hero for you in your life?
In the creative world or just in general?
Just kind of in general, anybody that's fueled your creative, but you as a person as well.
Yeah, I haven't had many people that are like I'm a very realist because of, honestly, even just like knowing how screwed up we all are and needing therapy. I've really never really put people on pedestals very much, but if I had to like say, hey, these people have marked my life, internally, it's my family. My mother, I'm basically her clone, and she's an entrepreneur, and that's where I got that from. And then ultimately though, like man, my wife, I know it's cliche to say these things, my mom, my
Oh, no,
wife,
it's
all these
good.
important people.
Yeah.
Um, Outside of my house, I would say some of my heroes are people that I would say, like, when I think of like who a hero is for me, it's somebody that's ahead of me on the trail, but we're on the same trail. So
Right.
like I look at people in my industry that are doing fantastic work. And maybe no one's ever heard of them, or maybe, people have only heard of them through social media or whatever. But I look at photographers like Forrest Mankins in Montana, or Bertie Mandagi in Washington, like, and I see how these guys are creating fantastic work, but they're also like devoted father or a devoted husband. And they're living out the work they want to do. So again, like, we're on the same trail, but I look at them as further down that trail, and I want to, kind of learn from them and walk, like, hey, when you came to this creek, how did you cross it?
Yeah.
When you got to this grove, like, did you pause? Like, those are the kind of things that I'm always looking for in the people that I emulate or look up to.
So I typically ask if you could meet anybody alive on the planet, one person, who would it be? But I'm going to rephrase this for you. Since you've came out of music and you're in the world of photography and creating, if you could be around one person, whether it's in the photography world or in the music world, and you could be around them while they create and just see how they do it, what process, who would you want to watch do that?
Oh, hands down, it is a musician and it's a pop artist. But it's 100% John Mayer, 100%. And
Yeah,
I'll tell you why. John Mayer is the greatest living guitarist right now. Like, any guitarist who's a serious guitarist would probably also say the same thing. But he's also one of the few people in the pop culture, in the stardom, that writes his own songs. That is not an industry standard thing to do. So John Mayer is he's an accomplished musician, and being that he's probably the greatest, I say probably, he is the greatest guitarist alive that anyone knows, like, in this generation. But he's also an incredible songwriter,
yeah,
and there's a discipline to writing songs. And like I would love to watch the discipline side of him that's actually doing the creative process, because creativity, it's systems. It's not just inspiration, it's systems.
right.
I forget, I think it's Stephen King who has the quote, that, I only write when inspiration hits. Fortunately, it hits it every morning at 9 a.m. you know
That's
um
right. That's right.
and I would love to watch the systems of great artists like John Mayer. I'd be in the room when he's making something.
I agree. John Mayer is kind of mind blowing, and I don't think he gets the due. Maybe he does in certain circles, but I remember seeing like
Mhm.
a when he really blew up, when that album early on blew up, and he started becoming a household name, and he was
Mhm.
still a little bit bespeckled by the notion of being a big artist filling stadiums, and they were asking him, and he had a quote that was so quintessential, and he was talking about when he's in his room. It's probably Googleable, but there's something about the reason why he does what he does is that he treats his bedroom like he's in an auditorium
Mm.
and vice versa. He
Yeah.
treats the auditorium like he's in his bedroom. That's what it was. And the
Yeah.
way he wordsmithed that, which is kind of the crux and the base and the
Mhm.
bedrock of creativity, it made total sense, which is why in my brain I was like, that's why he's so good at what he does. He's got a
Right.
grounded
Right.
approach at it.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that not every star earned their spot.
Right,
Like,
right.
but when it comes to like the work, the quality, the craftsmanship, like, that dude has earned what he's got. And so yeah, I don't know if this is a John Mayer fangirl podcast, but if
It
so,
could be.
like,
It could be.
yeah, if
Um,
so, I'm here for it.
yeah, yeah, it certainly could be. Speaking of, real quick, another quick John Mayer story, and we'll move on. There is a musician that I interviewed that was doing a lot of covers of his songs, and sent a message to him on Instagram to get his blessing. And it
Mm-hmm.
never came through. And as time went on, somehow he didn't check his Instagram account, and John Mayer actually got back with him, and it totally
Oh
freaked him
wow,
out.
I
Yeah,
bet.
he was a guitar player. Adam, he's here in Kansas City, and I
Mm,
interviewed him. But
that's
anyway, so
awesome.
he had a
Yeah,
brush with it, and he didn't know about it, but it happened.
yeah,
Um,
that's awesome.
so what is that motivation for you every day to get up, to do the work that you do, to create what you do? What is that inspiration, the gas in the tank?
Yeah, I think for me, um, you know, life is full of like currencies that we spend, right? Or currencies that we acquire. Like, we work jobs, we get money, and money pays for X, Y, and Z. But my bigger motivator is the currency of time. Like, time is a resource that is not fluid like money is. Like, money comes, money goes, we spend it, we get it, vice versa. But time is like, we spend it and then it doesn't come back. Like, it is not fluid. It is a loss. Every minute is a net loss. And so I'm very motivated by my time. Like, in fact, like, I choose time over money every single time, when those things are against one another. So I think my biggest motivator is like, is what I'm doing today going to continue to allow me to own my time? Um,
Yeah.
and so it's not like some fluffy, like, oh, like, I'm inspired by this, I want to go out and do this today. No, it's really like, is what I'm giving is what I'm giving my time to today what I want to give my time to, and will it further allow me to own my time? And so sometimes I take jobs that I don't love, but hey, if I do this job for 2 hours today, it's going to buy me another month of my own freedom.
Yeah.
And so, like, as a freelancer, I typically have to pick and choose what projects I'm giving my time to. And as much as, like, I would love to take, oh my gosh, like, this beautiful, huge contract, but it's going to require of me a sacrifice in other areas of my life that might take me away from, something important, then I'm going to choose the time over the payout.
So what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
From a business standpoint, it's been create multiple revenue streams. So,
Okay.
like as a freelancer, as a creative, that, like, originally I had one vision. I was like, I'm going to become the best at this thing, and I'm going to do this thing, and it's what I'm going to be known for in photography, and companies will come to me and they want this thing. Well, the problem is, like, when you do that, and I did that, and that lasted a little while. The problem, though, is that things change. Um, and when those things change, whether that client, maybe the model which you are offering is no longer relevant, or the client that was hiring you has completely shifted their business. When those things happen, if you don't have multiple ways to monetize your business, then you are going to suffer. I had a big so the one thing I was really known for product photography was creating these, like, rustic top down, like, flat lays. So I've, like, over the last, like, 15 years, have collected really interesting conversation pieces, antiques, things that, like, can be incorporated in a photo shoot for something that's like, only I can provide that, because nobody else has that thing I found in a Wyoming antique store on the side of the road. You know what I mean? Like, in the
Yeah.
middle of nowhere. Like, no one else has that thing. So therefore, that no one else can create photos like I have. And I have a lot of antiques, books, antique photographs, especially Western. I do a lot of Western, like west of Colorado style photography. And I had this company that put me on a retainer for basically a salary. So they were my biggest client for about 18 months, and then they went belly up. And then no one, like, at the same time, the trend of, like, that kind of, like, rustic top down product photography kind of went away, and everything now is like a colorful background with, like, an isolated, like, shampoo bottle or something on, like, a yellow background. So now my biggest client and the style in which I've been known for dried up, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, all my eggs were in this one basket. So now what? But luckily, like, getting the advice to diversify income, to, as a creative, to diversify your revenue, has been like, it makes it so I can continue to own my time. So when one thing inevitably falls apart, because that's what happens, like, nothing lasts forever, then I have 10 other lanes in which I can go figure out how to continue to keep this business running. And I'll also add one other thing. um One person always told me, like, look for where the fire is burning, and then put gasoline on it. So the idea is that, like, you might love something, but there's no fire there. And which is like, there's in the creative world, you've got one part of you that wants to, like, make art all day, and then there's a business side. Like, I've got to put food on the table for my family. And so, like, sometimes we get the mindset, especially people that don't work in the arts, they have this mindset that, oh, we're just creating all day, and that's not true at all. I would say most of my week is given to the business side and planning, working systems. But the whole fire concept, it's like, okay, if I love doing this thing, but there's no fire there, then I need to go up and look for where the fire is burning and then go pour like the gasoline on that. And so that like that can become like sustainable for a season. And then that fire will die and then it'll burn somewhere else. And so I'm constantly pivoting my creative world to where there's fire.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 20-year-old version of you, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained so far in your life. What advice would you dispense on that young version of you?
Yeah, I definitely would give some business coaching to 20 version of 20 to 20-year-old Dave, because 20-year-old Dave made a lot of, man, failed a lot. um, but I also think that I would say do things on the hard days, not just the good days. Like and this would be true in any career. Like if we only do things on the easy days, then we're never going to grow. Like growth takes resistance. Like I try to go to the gym and exercise, and it's hard work. You know what I mean? Like lifting or running, like that's all our body is resisting that, but that's what makes us grow. That's what makes things happen. And so I would tell 20-year-old me, don't just do the good stuff on the easy days. Try to do that stuff on the hard days too.
So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Yeah, I like to believe that at the end of the day, I want to be known for my culture of who I am, not like the stuff I create. And so my perception of me is really, again, I just go back to systems. Like I defined who I wanted to be many years ago. When my kids were born, my first son was born, I was like, okay, I came from a broken family. Let's not repeat that. And rather than just aimlessly go through life and like, you go in someone's house and their house has a smell, right? I mean, everyone's house has like, and that's like that family. It's not like a good or bad thing. It's just like between the food they cook and how they clean their house or whatever. Every family, I was like, I don't want people to come into like my life and know me for something I don't want to be known for, right? So what my wife and I did is like we were like, well, okay, who do we want to be as a family? And so we laid out some like guiding principles that we want to be. And for 9, 10 years now, we've been living that out. Like for instance, like one of the most important values in our family, and what we're trying to demonstrate to our kids is living like generous and open-handed. So like we're not complete minimalist, but we also don't acquire a lot of things that we don't need. And rather, like when we do acquire new things, we even teach our kids, hey, well, we're going to give some stuff to people that have needs. We're going to be generous people. So I would hope, like for me, when I look at myself, like I would hope that I can continually live out these like gratitude and generosity are a big part of what who I want to be. And so when I'm looking at the end of the week or end of the month or even end of the day, what did I have a chance? Did I have a chance to live those out today? And if so, did I take those chances? And that's my scorecard at the end of the day. It's not like getting through my checklist. It really comes down to, hey, did I have a chance to be generous today? Did I have a chance to be grateful today? And if I did have a chance, did I in fact practice generosity? Did I in fact practice gratitude? And I'm evaluating that stuff every day.
So, Dave, if anyone wants to see your work, hire you, reach out to you, anything about your world, where do they go?
Yeah, so I was so lucky to get the domain dave.online. I couldn't
Nice.
believe it was available. If you just go to dave.online in your browser, it's going to pull me right up.
Good
And
job.
the most memorable, easy domain ever.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got it for $30 like 5
Yeah.
years ago. I could not believe it was available. And I'm hold on to it. I'll never get rid of it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
dave.online, that's my website.
Fell out of the clouds. Dave, this has been great, man. Thank you so much. Keep on doing the good work, my man.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yes, sir. Take care.